Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. Okay, so we're doing Parsha Mikeitz about Yosaif and the amazing dreams, about Joseph and the Pharaoh. And we're going to also learn about Chanukah and what is the mystical connection between Mikeitz and Chanukah. And then we're going to explore about the amazing nature of dreams. And hopefully we're going to be able to tie all this together and get some insight into the connection of Mikeitz and Chanukah. All right, so what actually is a dream? So we all experience it every night, but what is a dream? So it's interesting. So the Gemara tells us in Masechta Brachos that a dream is 1/60th of nevuah. It's 1/60th of prophecy. And it also says in the Gemara that there's 6 levels of dreams. So as you go higher and higher and higher in these levels of dreams, you're getting closer and closer to nevuah. And then if you ever get a chance to learn some of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's amazing books, he has a book, I think it's called The Bible Meditation and like Kabbalah Meditation. And he talks about a lot of how the Nevi'im, how did the prophets actually get prophecy? How did they receive nevuah from Hashem? And they basically went into a meditative state, which is being conscious, being up and awake while you're in that dream state. So then we'll take it here. Let me see if I can bring the Gemara up here. We're going to take a look at the Gemara and start looking at the nature of dreams. And so this is in Masechta Brachos, and it's page 55b. And let me bring that up on the screen here. So we see something fascinating here. So Shmuel, so it says Shmuel ki chava chaze chelma. When Shmuel would see a chelma bisha, so when he would have a bad dream, when he would see a bad dream, he would say this is really interesting. He would say the chalomos hashav yadaberu. So he would quote a pasuk from Zechariah 10:2. He would quote this from the prophecy of Zechariah, and he would say that dreams they speak lies, they speak vanities and lies, and a dream's not true. So if he had a bad dream, he would say that. So then it says ki hava chaze chelma taba, but when that Shmuel would have a good dream, he would say this. He would say, "V'chi hachalomos hashav yadaberu." He'd say, "Do dreams lie?" He said, "No," because we have a pasuk here. Pasuk says, "B'chalom adaber bo," that in a dream I will speak with him. So it says in in the book, the Sefer Bamidbar, in the book of Numbers, it's chapter 12, pasuk 6. That when Hashem was speaking with Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was speaking with the greatest prophet that there ever was, Moses, he would actually say, I speak with him in a dream. Let's see if we can go over there in the Torah and take a look at that. I would try to bring up that book here, and we're going into the book of Numbers, Sefer Bamidbar. And let me see if I can bring this up. And so it would say here, oh, sorry, let me, got too much up on the screen here. Okay, let me go back to Bamidbar. So it says here, Vayomer Shimu na devar im ihiyah, that Hashem was speaking to Moshe, and he would say, here, that these are my words. So im ihiyah neviachem Hashem, that when a prophet of Hashem comes up among you, b'mara elav esvada b'chalom adaber bo. He says that when a prophet of Hashem arises among you, he's saying, I will make myself known. Isvada, I'll make myself known b'chalom, in a dream, adaber bo. And this is what Shmuel was quoting, that saying that he will make himself known in a dream. We'll speak with him, this prophetic vision in a dream. And then he says, "V'lo chein avdi Moshe b'kol beisi ne'manhu." Is it not so that my servant Moshe, my servant Moses, he is the most trusted in my house? So in the whole history of the world, there's no greater prophet than Moshe Rabbeinu, than Moses. The whole Torah was given through Moshe. Hashem gave Moshe the whole Torah in prophetic meditation state, or we see here it's even greater. It says, so peh el peh adaber bo, that Hashem says, I will speak with him mouth to mouth, just like a person speaks to each other. Like Hashem, that was the kind of communication between Hashem and Moshe. And he says, Umara velo bechidus, in a vision, but not any riddles. It'll be very clear. The message will be, the communication will be very clear when I give the Torah to Moshe. Usamunas Hashem yabit, and he will see this vision of Hashem. So, an infinite being, how you see the vision. We'll have to discuss that briefly. Umadu alo yirasem yedaber be'avdi b'Moshe. So how then do you not, shrink from my speaking against, how dare you speak against my servant Moshe? So here we see that, we're talking about the greatest of all prophets, that Hashem spoke with Moshe, on this very close level, and it's communicated in this prophetic state, in this meditative state, but through a dream-like state, and that's how we receive the whole Torah, and that's like the highest level of communication with Hashem, with his infinite being. Now, how do you see the image of Hashem? You don't know. So Rashi also comments on that Moshe could only see Hashem, from behind, meaning like we don't really understand. You can see the backside of Hashem. So how do you see the backside of, speaking face to face to this infinite being? So we are limited. We can't actually perceive, like all of Hashem. We can't see affinity. We can't see all of Hashem, but we can see and get an idea of Hashem. So it's also talking about, I don't want to go too deep into the Kabbalah, but it's talking about the communications, through the spiritual network of these Pharaohs and these Partsufim, and just Hashem's holy name, the Yud Hey Vav Hey name. But Hashem's communicating, with us every day, but most of it's very hidden. Just things happen to us, and Hashem's speaking to us, and we do something, and then Hashem reacts back, and Hashem wants to steer us, onto a good path. So this constant communication is very hidden in the physical world, of a level of like, we have either like Yisurim, we have like, things are going wrong, we get sick, or like we lose our job, or like a relationship breaks up. We have these difficulties, and then, we have the bracha, we have where things are going good, where Hashem is like trying to motivate us, to keep going in a good way, or gives us, money that we need. Like, let's say we need money to take a trip to Israel, or we can meiser 10% of our money we earn to give a tzedakah to help someone else. So Hashem's speaking us in a hidden way, but then there's higher and higher levels of communication. So let's go back. Let me bring back up the Gemara. We'll keep going through the Gemara here to get more understanding about what's happening in dreaming, just a normal dreaming that we have every night. So we'll go back to the Gemara here. And so Shmuel was saying, so Shmuel was interesting. So Shmuel was contrasting, like when he would have a bad dream, he would say, dreams lie. But when he had a good dream, he would talk about how Hashem gave nevuah, gave prophecy to Moses through a dream, through visions. So Rava Rami. So Rava is going to point out the contradiction of what Shmuel is saying here. He's saying, the chaloma daber bo. So he's saying, on one hand, you're saying in a dream I spoke with Moses, the Gasi, but then there's this other pasuk from Zechariah that says, v'chalomas hashav yedaberu, that dreams lie. So what is it? Is dreams, the highest level of dreams, of prophecy, we're getting a direct communication from this infinite being, or dreams just false, they lying? So what's going on? So here's a very amazing concept here. So he says, lo kasha, says this is not a difficulty. He says, kan al yedei malach, kan al yedei shade. So wow, this is crazy. So as we talked about, there's 6 levels of dreams, and then there's high, even beyond dreams, there's someone can go into a meditative state and reach a state of nevuah, of prophecy. And there, so the prophecy, or this high level of dream close to prophecy, what Rava is saying is going to be delivered by a malach, an angel. So the highest level of spiritual beings created by Hashem is a malach, an angel. And I think there's 10 different types of malachim, 10 different types of angels. But sometimes when we get nightmares, when we get bad dreams, or dreams where there's a lot of falsehood mixed into the truth of the dream, that is brought by a shindalet, a shade, a demon. So they're a lower level of spiritual beings, and I forgot exactly how many types of shindalets are, demons are. I don't want to go so much into like all the the angels and demons right now, but this is like they're involved on the spiritual level when we have dreams every night. So what actually happens? So when we have a dream at night, so what actually happens? So it's interesting because the first thing we do when we get up in the morning is we say them Modani, Lefanecha, Melechai V'Kayam, Shechazarta Bishmati B'Chemla, that Hashem, you restored, Chazarti, you restored to me like my neshama. You restored my soul every morning. So what does that mean? And then we negavas, and then we wash, if a negavaser, 3 times, pouring the water over hands, and we're removing what's called the ruach ra, this like evil, spirit, this evil, thing. So what's going on? So when we actually dream, even the lowest level of dreams we experience, what happens is we have the different levels of our soul. So the lowest level of our soul is the nefesh, which resides in the circulation, the blood flow of the body. But the next level up, the next higher level up from that is the ruach, which is in the lungs and the breathing of our air. So that aspect of us, the higher level, the ruach, which actually means wind, spirit, is in that level of our body. And then higher than that is the neshama, which resides just above the brain, or just above the head. And that's where I think people talk about auras. They're talking about the neshama, which is outside, top of a person's head. And that's like the brain function. And these are like the 3, lower. There's 2 higher levels we're not going to go into right now. There's chaya and yechida. But so what happens is, I think from the ruach up, the ruach ascends in the neshama, and this part of our neshama, our soul, this ascends up into the spiritual world. So the higher and higher it goes, is the higher and higher level of the dream, closer to nevuah, closer to prophecy. And that's why when our ruach is missing from our goof, from our body at night, when it goes into the spiritual world, so we're actually experiencing something in the spiritual world when we're dreaming. So when that happens, then there's an emptiness of a ruach inside our body, and then this ruach ra can come in, and then we wash it out with the negavaser in the morning. I don't know, everyone, maybe you like this spiritual stuff, so this is great. So that's a little bit what we experience when we're actually dreaming. And if chas v'shalom we have a nightmare, then we're probably getting it delivered by the Shindao, this lower level of spiritual being. But sometimes we have these amazing dreams. We have more clarity, and we can even remember it sometimes in the morning. And Rabbi Yochanan goes into the 3 types of dreams in the Gemara that come true. So it's interesting. If you have a dream right before you wake up in the morning, that's a dream that comes true. If you dream of a friend in your dream, that's a kind of dream that comes true. And if the dream is repeated, which we're going to see soon with Yosaif and Pharaoh, with Joseph and the Pharaoh, if it's that kind of dream, that dream can come true. So these are the 3 types of dreams that come true. All right, so let's go back into Parsha Mikeitz. We got a lot to cover here. You can ask me any questions if we're covering a lot of ground here, but if you have any questions about any of this, please, write your comments, ask me a question. All right, so let's bring up here to Parsha Mikeitz, and let's take a look here. And so this is actually, so Paro, the Pharaoh, is telling the dream to Joseph, very famous. So he says, "Vayidaber Paro el Yosef." The Pharaoh says to Joseph, he says, "V'chalomi hineni omeid al safas hayor," that I was standing on the banks of the Nile River, the banks of this canal, this mighty river. And says, "V'hine min hayor olo sheva paros barios basar v'yafos toar." And then out of the Nile River came, and it's interesting that the Nile River, so the Nile symbolizes all the creation of, the produce and the crops of Egypt. There's no rainfall in Egypt. In Egypt, really, the crops all grow by the overflowing of the Nile River. It's a very unique country in all the world in that aspect, that all the crops grow from the overflowing of the Nile River and don't depend as much on rainfall there. So out of the Nile comes these 7 cows, these healthy cows, and they have this beautiful form, B'tirena bi'achu, and they're grazing in the reed grass in the swamp. And he says, "V'hine sheva paros acheros olos acherecha." And then these other cows, these 7 other cows come out, and they're dalos v'raos. They're kind of like scrawny, they're poorly formed, they have a raos toar, they have actually an evil appearance or a bad appearance, ma'od, very bad appearance, very evil appearance. The rakos basar, and their flesh is very, empty, emaciated flesh. Below re'isi kehena b'cho aretz Misraim laroa. And I've never seen like this ugliness in a land of, physical bounty. I've never seen this ugliness in the land of Egypt. So then he says, "V'tochana haparos harakos," and then these 7 lean cows and not so great looking cows, haraos, these 7 lean and ugly cows or evil cows, Ace Sheva Haparos Harishonos Habrios. And they come and they actually eat up. They eat up the first cows, the 7 first cows, the really healthy ones. So then Vatavona El Kirbena. So velo noda kivau el kirbena. But when they came inside of them, when the really healthy, beautiful cows came inside the scrawny, emaciated cows, it didn't seem like it did anything. It didn't seem like it changed their appearance at all. El kirbena umarekem. Didn't change their appearance, their evil appearance. Kasher betachila ve'ikatz. And they looked just as bad, just as evil as before. And then I woke up. So then he says, "Va'era b'chalomi," in my other dream, "V'hine sheva shibolim olos b'kana." And 7 ears of grain, they came up on one stalk. B'kana echad, one stalk. Meleos v'tovos, and they were really full and they were healthy, and they were growing on this one stalk. So then "V'hine sheva shibolim sinumos," and right behind them, there's like right behind them sprouted 7 ears. Of the dakos, shedufos kadim, and they were like shriveled and they were thin, and they were scorched by the east wind. Somchos acharegem, they grew after them. So these now, but after the 7 ears of grain, the full and healthy, growing on a single stalk, we see that now there's these 7 ears of grain, they're shriveled, they're thin, and they're scorched by the east wind. V'tivlana hashibolim hadakos eshiva sheva Hashibolim hatovos. And then these thin ears, they swallow up the 7, good ears, the healthy ears, the good ears of grain. Ve'omer el hachortumim ve'ein magili. And then he goes and he tells his sorcerers, his necromancers, but they couldn't explain it to him. So Mitzrayim, Egypt, in the ancient world, was renowned for their kishuf. They were the masters of magic and sorcery. And we're going to see the contrast between the Kedusha and the Sitra Achra, the side of holiness, and the other side. So Vayomer Yosaif el Paro, and Joseph says to Pharaoh, he says, Chalom Paro echad. He says, no, it's all one dream. The dream, these 2 dreams of the 7 cows and the dreams of the 7 ears of grain, it's all one dream. Eis asher ha'elokim oseh higi leFaro. And what Elokim, what the judgment aspect of Hashem, what the judgment aspect of God is going to do, oseh higi leFaro. He's telling Pharaoh, he's telling you what God's telling you what he's about to do. So Sheva Paros Hatovo Sheva Shanim. He says these 7 healthy cows, they represent 7 years. Heina Vesheva Hashibolim Hatovo Sheva Shanim. Heina Chalom Echadu. And then also the 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears of grain are 7 years, and it's all one dream. Chalom Echadu. It is just one dream. So he goes on and he says, Resheva Paros Harakos Vaharaos Haolos Acharehem, that the 7 lean and ugly cows that followed, Sheva Shanim, Heina, they're 7 years, Vesheva Hashibolim Hareko Shedofos Hakadim, and the 7 like the empty ears of grain scorched by the east wind, Yu Sheva Shnei Ra'av. They're going to be the 7 years of famine. So then he says, interesting. So he says, Hu Adavar Asher Dibarti, just the Barti El Paro, just as I have told the Pharaoh, Asher HaElokim Osa Her'a Es Paro, that God, that Elokim has revealed to Pharaoh what he's about to do. So here we see that this dream is going to be on the higher level. This is going to be a nevuah. This is a direct communication from Hashem to the Paro, to the Pharaoh. And why is he doing this? He's doing this to elevate Yosaif, that Yosaif is going to become the king, like the Pharaoh is going to make him the king in all but name, all but the throne. And he's elevating Yosaif, and he's giving a direct communication to Pharaoh, because Pharaoh is the king. He's the king of this mighty empire, and all these people are dependent on the king to, for their subsistence, for their daily lives. So Hashem's making this direct nevuah, this communication, to tell him about the 7 years of plenty to store up, and then you'll have food for the famine, and then all the world can be supported. All the people can come to Egypt and they'll be supported. And this is all going to be through Yosaif, is to elevate Joseph. So what's the connection of all this? So we see the obvious connection to dreams. What's the connection between this and Chanukah? We always read Parsha Mikeitz of Chanukah and the Greeks, and going against the Maccabees, the Kashmonayim. So what's the connection? So we're going to talk about it. So one thing that's interesting is The gematria of Yosaif is actually, if you add up the letters, the Hebrew letters, it adds up to 156. And then the king of the Greeks at that time was Antiochus, the evil king of Chanukah, well-known Chanukah story. And the gematria of his name in the Hebrew letters is also 156. So we see a connection between Yosaif and Antiochus. So Yosaif is going to be like he's the opposite. He's something opposite from Antiochus. But we're also going to see how the Pharaoh, he also kind of held the view of the Greeks. And we explain that the Pharaoh kind of represents the view of the Greeks in his dream, and then how Yosaif is something higher and something different that goes against all that. So who are the Greek? Who is the Greek Empire? So the Greek Empire, what they kind of worship, they worship beauty and they worship the physical world. So they only believed in the physical world and they didn't believe in the spiritual world. So they wanted a world of beauty. So there was the beauty of the human body, and that's why they glorified like sports, athletics, like the competition of the human body, who's the strongest, who's the fastest, who can jump the highest. So it's the glorification of physical strength and power. They like poetry, like human poetry, like the beauty of the human speech, and theater. So it's interesting with theater. So theater is kind of like, it's the dreams of the Greeks. So we're talking about from the Torah and the dreams from Parsha Mikeitz and Yosaif and the power of dreams, is talking about the level of this infinite being communicating with mankind, and on higher and higher levels. So on a simple level of us every night when we have a dream, and on the highest level with the nevuah, with the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu, with Moses, who can speak actually face to face with Hashem, face to face with this infinite being, the closest direct communication a person can have with this infinite being, with Hashem. But the Greeks were more interested in human speech, in human drama, in the theater, the comedy or the tragedy of human relationships. And there was there's no spirituality in it. And if you look at actually their theology and their religion, it's very fascinating, because what they really are worshiping is humanity. They're worshiping a human being. So when they make their religion, right, they don't have the knowledge of Hashem, and that's why Yavan or Greece is called darkness, choshech. And it's the power, and it's shachak, and it's the same choshech, darkness is the same power shachak as forgetting. And they try to make the world forget this higher spiritual level, this higher spiritual worlds, and only concentrate on the physical world. So they darken the eyes of the Jewish people with their decrees. And what did they decree? They didn't want Jewish people studying Torah or sanctifying the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. They didn't want people having a bris milah, so why, and they didn't want people celebrating Shabbat. They didn't want Jews celebrating Shabbat and not keeping kosher. So why? Like, what was so offensive to them about this? So if we look real bit quick back at their religion, so their religion is, they're really worshiping human beings. So what they really created is they created these superhuman beings. Like, they created these superhuman beings. So if you look at like the Greek mythology, it's like they're bigger, stronger, immortal, more powerful human beings, but they act like human beings. They're jealous, they're in love, they hate this person. So they're just these superhumans, which is kind of like our modern day comic books. Is like, how Greek mythology came down in the years just to be distilled into comic books and comic book movies now. And we'll talk a little bit about movies, but everything is the glorification of the physical world. So everything about the Torah drove them crazy, because the Torah is talking about this infinite being, this one unique infinite being that created all the world, and this relationship with this infinite being. And that's against everything they stand for, because they stand for the elevation of the human being. And while Hashem created the human being with greatness, Hashem created the human being with a Tselem Elokim, this image of Hashem. We talked about our neshamas, our soul, who we really are, is made out of, it's spiritual. Our soul is ruchnius. And that's who we really are. And we're in this physical body, we're in this goof. But the Greeks chose to not see any of that. They only saw the goof, only the physical body and the physical world. So they made their theology just like a super expression of the physical world. Like, the gods living in this high mountain of Olympus, and their gods are just superhumans. And so everything drove them crazy. So like a bris milah, so if they think the body's perfect, when Hashem gives us the mitzvah to do a bris milah, a circumcision, to then say the body's not perfect, and we have to do this mitzvah to make the body perfect, that was infuriating the Greeks. And kashrus, if everything's great in the physical world, Hashem saying, no, there's kosher animals and there's non-kosher animals. There's certain animals Hashem created that have great spiritual benefit and have a certain good midos, like a cow is gentle, and as opposed to a pig. And the pig, there's no tov in there. There's no spiritual tov in there. There's no ruchnius of tov in the pig. So just there's a physical benefit, just like any food has a physical benefit. But Hashem says, no, I only want you to have kosher food, which has not only a physical benefit to you, but has a ruchnius, a spiritual benefit too. And that drove them crazy. So they had to outlaw all this. So what's theater today? So their theater, their drama, and their storytelling, really now it comes into like modern day movie making. So it's interesting because what in essence is a movie? So this is like kind of like the Hellenism that's come down to us today. Like, there's still Broadway. I don't want to start Broadway. I've never been a huge fan, of Broadway, but hey, it's great. People love it. It's the modern day, Greek theater. It's now, more dazzling, but in a way, like theater is going. And I have a bias. I mean, I went to film school. I worked in the film industry. So maybe I have a bias too. But I think movies have taken that format of theater and elevated it. But why is movies more powerful per se? Like, because there's something very powerful. A movie in essence is just its projection of light, and it's the recording of sound. So they, you shoot the actors on the film or digital now, and then you project that light of the image and then mix with the sound. And that is a very powerful combination. So light and sound is when Hashem presented the Jewish people the Torah at Mount Sinai. Hashem presented it with these brilliant lights. It was lightning and thunder, and it's just light and sound. And then we heard Hashem speak. And then it was interesting because our senses were heightened, and we can actually hear it was the opposite. We usually hear the sound, but we could hear the lights, and we could see the sound, which is the opposite of how usually everything is. So the Greeks believed in this physical world, which is the world of the Teva, and we see that the physical world is based on a 7, the number 7. So there's 7 heavenly bodies, that influence us here on the earth. The earth is one of them. We have the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, Jupiter. So those are the 7, bodies, the heavenly bodies that influence us. And then we have the 7 days of the week. And then the physical construct of the world is, in the world, we have the 4 directions, of east, west, north, south, all around us in 4 directions. And we have up and down. So we're surrounded by these 6 components. And then we have a 7th component of time. And we have the time and space of the universe that we're created in the physical universe. So 7 is the number of the natural world. And this is the number of the Greeks. And this is interesting. If we look in Parsha Mikeitz, this is the dream that the Pharaoh had, that the Pharaoh had, and everything was given to him in the natural world, because that's where he also saw things as that. And so he's, so it's given in the 7. So the 7 healthy cows, the 7, the 7, unhealthy cows, the 7 healthy, grains of wheat, and the 7, stricken and scorched grains of wheat. So everything is given 7 in the number of the Teva, the number of nature. But Yosaif is seeing beyond that, and seeing that this is beyond that, and the power of Yosaif, that why he was like a master of dreams. And who is the real master of dreams? Is Hashem. So Yosaif sees that Hashem is the real master of dreams, and that everything's being given from this infinite being. It's a communication coming into the physical world. So that's why the Pharaoh saw everything as 7. It's coming into the physical world, but it's beyond that. And that's why Yosaif says this is all from Elohim. And this is what Elohim is going to do. This is what God is he's giving you a communication through a dream of what he's going to do. Now, the Greeks who worship the physical world only live in the world of 7, only live in the world, of the 7-day week. But Shabbos is the elevation. So the 7th day of the week is Shabbos, and it starts to elevate us beyond. And in Shabbos, we remember that Hashem's created everything. Hashem created the Ma'aseh. So what was the battle between the Maccabees, the Chashmonaim, and the Greeks, is that it was a battle of 8. So Chanukah is 8. So 8 is the supernatural that goes above the physical world, because the Torah teaches us that there's much more. The physical world is the lowest level, but Hashem's created higher and higher spiritual worlds, and there's an infinite number of spiritual worlds that go to the pure essence of the infinite being, because the whole universe is inside the middle of this infinite being, and we're inside the time and space that Hashem's created. But Joseph knows that is elevated, and the Torah, our knowledge of the Torah, us doing the mitzvahs, this elevates us beyond the physical world, connects us to the infinite being, connects us to Hashem. And that's where we can bring in the miracles, the miracles, the nisim. And that's how the little, Chashmonayim army, this little army, just a couple thousand, yeshiva students, can defeat hundreds of thousands of the great Greek army, just a far superior army with superior physical strength, and superior knowledge of military tactics. But when we connect to Hashem, it brings us to this level of 8. It brings us beyond the physical into the supernatural, into the spiritual. And that's also what Yosaif. So when we light the Chanukah menorah, when we light, over 8 nights, we light the 36 neiros, the 36 candles, and that connects us back to the pure infinite light that was created at the very beginning of creation, the Maisa Bereshis. And Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, they spent 36 hours, first 12 hours before Shabbos, and then the 24 hours of Shabbos in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, connecting with that infinite light, this pure vision, the purest connection to Hashem that the world has seen up till now. And when we light the Chanukah menorah, we try to connect back to that infinite. It connects us back to that infinite light, these 36 little candles that we have. So we see that dreams, and then higher than that, Nevuah, prophecy, and just the mitzvah, and the beautiful mitzvah of Chanukah, what it is, it's connecting us to the source. It's connecting us to Hashem, and we can go beyond the physical world. And as a Jewish people, we can go beyond our limitations. And so Bizrat Hashem, we'll see the coming Mashiach soon. And Chanukah is the time that can bring the Gula, that can end the Golus, it can end the exile. And we sing it in the song Ma'al Zor. And we can get out of this. And then when the Jewish people can, Bizrat Hashem, we see the coming Mashiach and the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem, and we'll have that connection again, and we'll light the menorah in the temple, and we'll have that pure connection again, and then we'll be able to finally reach the state back in Gan Eden. We'll be able to reach that level again, where we'll reconnect to the infinite light, and we'll see a clearer vision of the infinite being in this world. And the goal, and what Yosaif was talking about, and why we see us as a master of dreams, is that knowing that everything's coming from Hashem. And when you bring the spiritual into the physical world, then you can create Zion. So the word for Yavan, Greece, and when you add the Tzaddik, the letter Sadi, the Sadiq to Yavan, you take the beauty of the physical world, and then you bring the spiritual into it, and you can build it even higher. So we'll see the Beis HaMikdash will be one of the most beautiful buildings. And it's the beauty of the physical, but filled with the spiritual and our connection with Hashem. Okay, I know it's very complicated. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet Good Torah.